You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Welcome back to Last Call. I'm Caroline Lamb, joined by Scott and Erica today. This week, we're digging into a recent report from Tier Beverages, led by longtime analyst Linda Zunas and Aaron McVickers, with category trends from Danny Brager. Drawing on Nielsen IQ Spectra, OmniShopper, and depletions data, the report takes a deep dive into who today's wine consumer really is, looking at topics like why wine penetration is shrinking, even as spend per buyer rises, how sparkling is attracting younger and more diverse drinkers, and what shifting behaviors around wellness, packaging, and occasion mean for the future of the category. I'm curious to hear what your takeaways were from this report.
I absolutely adore the people at Tier Beverage for sharing so much of this really incredible data. One thing that stuck out to me was this phrase that came up, which is occasion over habit. And, it really resonated with me personally. One finding was that alternative packaging, and examples include like Tetra Paks, half bottles that we've talked about before on the podcast, wine in cans. It's growing, or it's at least not declining as quickly as the rest of the wine category. But in this way, the wine industry is kind of behind beer and spirits in terms of smaller or alternative packaging sizes. So they shared that only 5% of the wine category comes from packages less than 750 milliliters. And you compare that with, say, spirits, where 20 to 25% have smaller sizes than 750 milliliter bottles. I think personally, on a school night, a Monday evening, I can enjoy at home an incredible can or bottle of craft beer, or I can buy a premium bottle of whiskey and make a single cocktail. What I can't do is have a super premium or luxury glass of wine unless I want to open a full bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the format mix is something we're going to see more and more here. I think what stood out to me in this report is some things that wine producers do not want to hear, which is most wine consumers still skew older, often 55 plus, and they're higher income and predominantly white. So red wine drinkers in particularly, they were more likely to be retired homeowners and empty nesters. And while this is like the demographic stability that has defined the core of the category really for decades, it also highlights the challenge facing wine, which is that wine's base is aging. And without younger, more diverse consumers coming in, the long-term penetration will continue to decline. So I think that is like the big takeaway for me here.
Yeah, and what this report does say about targeting new consumers is that sparkling wine is basically the Trojan horse for getting the younger, more diverse drinkers into the wine world. And that's fun. That's kind of occasion-based too, because where do you find bubbly? In celebrations and more casual settings. So that is a step that if you're a wine brand that wants to engage with that demographic, you might have to explore finding a way to, get sparkling into your lineup in a way that makes sense for you. And then we might just start exploring reds and whites too. I don't know.
And non-alc, right? This was an interesting finding from that webinar is, non-alc wine, its market share of the total wine category is about half of 1%. And you can compare that with kind of a more established category like non-alcoholic beer, which is almost 3% of the beer category. So there's lots of runway, and we're really at the early innings of the game, as it were, when it comes to non-alc wine and the expansion of that category.
Yeah, definitely. And, another point on the younger consumer front, what some data in this report indicated is, in addition to sparkling wine, younger consumers, they really value diversity. They are experimenting. They appreciate authenticity. They're bringing different expectations to the table. And, they're exploring things like alternative whites, the sparkling, as we mentioned, the better for you category, which continues to grow. And there's things that they do care about, transparency, sustainability. They're seeking that authenticity and cultural alignment from the brands that they support. So I think there's like a shift here. We're seeing that smart brands strategically can leverage, and it's really thinking from a customer first lens, which is like producers need to speak the language. They need to meet consumers where they are. That could be like the flavor forward innovation. We see a ton of that happening with, the Stella Rosas and Barefoot's Fruit Scotto. We see smaller packaging formats like the resealable Tetra from Beatbox. That now I see happening. Like I see so many brands bringing out Tetras right now. That seems to be like the format du jour, the 200 mLs. And, also, looking across omni-channel retail, like thinking convenience, should some of these brands be in convenience where available? Like maybe that's the opportunity. I think it's really start, rethinking as we start to look forward into what the future means for wine.
Yeah, and it might be redundant, but focusing your marketing efforts where those people actually are. I mean, I always think about your interview with Shyla Salmon from Jackson Family and just saying, hey, we're showing up at cultural events where our ideal drinker is, and they might not even know it yet, but we have our trailer and we're sampling wine. So not just showing up and phoning it in and doing wine dinners or going to the events that wine has always been, but really, really thinking outside of the box and finding where your people are. And I always tell people, you're never too small to harness your data. I think reading through this, it's like optimize it. Use tools that take your data and show you exactly where those people are. You don't have to guess. Well, I think that's a great place for us to wrap up. So as always, thanks for joining us on the Business of Drinks. Please follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're listening, and tap the notification button so you'll be the first to know when we drop a new episode. Please help us spread the word by clicking the star ratings or sharing on your social networking. It really helps us find new listeners. And finally, if there's anything you'd like us to cover on the podcast, please tell us. We are available at podcast@businessofdrinks.com or reach out via Instagram or LinkedIn. We want to hear from you, and we really do respond to our messages. See you next time.